Have you ever just stopped and looked at a flower, a really perfect one, and wondered, how? Seriously, how does a plant manage to build something so complex, so symmetrical, and so beautiful, all on its own? It feels like it should be magic, right? Well, the reality is actually way cooler. So let's just jump right in. The big question is this: what's the instruction manual? How does a plant know exactly where to put the petals, the stamens, and all the other bits and pieces in the right order every single time? And the answer, of course, is hidden in its DNA. It's not magic at all. It's this incredibly elegant and precise genetic blueprint, a program that's been tweaked and perfected over millions of years. So today, we are going to crack open that blueprint and see exactly how it works. All right, so where do we even start? Well, the very first thing that has to happen is the plant has to make a huge decision. It's got to stop what it's doing, just growing leaves and stems, and commit to making a flower. It has to flip that switch. Now, the command center for this whole operation is this tiny little spot at the tip of a growing shoot. It's called the shoot apical meristem, or just SAM for short. You can think of it as a non-stop construction site, just packed with stem cells that are always churning out new leaves, making the plant taller. But then, the signals start coming in. Maybe it's the day is getting longer, or the temperature is just right, or maybe the plant is just old enough. All these signals converge, and they switch on these key genes that basically send a memo up to the SAM, the command center. And this right here is the moment everything changes. The SAM gets that message, and its entire mission gets a reboot. The directive is no longer keep growing, now it's time to reproduce. The leaf factory is officially shutting down to retool and become a flower factory. Okay, so the plant's decided it's time to flower. The next step is to actually assign the job. A couple of master genes have to step in and basically declare that this specific bit of tissue is going to become a flower, and there's no going back. So that main growth tip, the stem, it starts budding off these little specialized zones on its sides, and these are called floral meristems. Each one of these is like a dedicated construction site, a foundation laid for one and only one complete flower. So how does the plant make sure this plant sticks? Well, two master genes, which you can think of as the head foreman on this construction site, they come in and take charge. Their names are Leafy and Apatella 1, and their whole job is to basically shout, "Hey, we are building a flower right here," and shut down any other programs trying to build leaves or stems. But what happens if those foremen just don't show up for work? Let's take a look at a plant where that gene, AP1, and a close cousin called Cal are both broken. They're non-functional. The signal to actually build the flower never really gets locked in. And what happens next is amazing, because it shows you exactly what those genes do. Instead of building a flower on that foundation, the plant just builds another foundation, and then another one, and another one, and another. You end up with this huge pile of undeveloped flower foundations. And that is literally what a cauliflower is. It's a beautiful genetic mistake where the flowers just never get built.
Okay, so we've got our foundation, the master genes are yelling the orders. Now we get to the really cool part, the actual architectural plan. How does the plant know where to put the sepals, and then the petals, and then the stamens? Well, it all comes down to this beautiful, simple system called the ABC model.
First, let's just do a quick recap of a flower's basic layout. It's built in 4 concentric rings, or whorls. On the very outside, you've got whorl 1. Those are the sepals, the little green leafy bits. Move in one step, and you're in whorl 2, the colorful petals. Whorl 3 holds the stamens, which are the male parts. And right in the dead center, whorl 4, you've got the carpels, the female parts. So the genetic blueprint for this is, and this is wild, it's shockingly simple. It really just relies on 3 classes of genes. We call them A, B, and C. And as you can see here, these genes are just switched on in different overlapping zones across those 4 whorls. It creates a simple but incredibly powerful code. And here's the rule book. It's so simple. In that outermost whorl, only class A genes are on, and A by itself gives you a sepal. In the second whorl, you get class A and class B genes working together. That combination gives you a petal. In the third whorl, it's B plus C, and that makes a stamen. And in the very middle, C all by itself makes the carpel. That's it. It's an amazingly simple little code. Now, there is one more little twist. A critical piece of the puzzle. Scientists later found a 4th class of genes, called class E genes. You can think of them as the master power switch for the whole operation. They're active everywhere, in all four whorls, and without them, none of the A, B, or C genes can do their job. If you get rid of the E genes, the whole thing just defaults to making boring old leaves.
And we can really see how logical this all is when we look at what happens when it breaks. So for example, take a plant where you knock out the C-class gene. Well, what happens? The plant makes sepals just fine, because that's just gene A. It makes petals fine, that's A plus B. But in whorl 3, where you're supposed to have B plus C, you only have B. So what do you get? More petals. And in the center, where you're supposed to have just C, there's nothing. So the whole pattern just starts over from the beginning, creating this bizarre flower within a flower. It's incredible.
So we've got the blueprint, right? This elegant ABC model. But that kind of brings up another question. How do these genes actually build stuff? What are they doing? To get that, we've got to zoom way, way in to the molecular level. So here's the key thing to remember. The genes themselves don't physically build anything. They're the architects. They draw up the plans. Each gene codes for a specific protein. And these proteins are like the specialist workers on the construction site. They have to team up in very specific ways to form these little construction crews, molecular machines that know how to do just one job, like building a petal. And here's what those teams look like. They're often made of 4 protein units, so scientists call them quartets. You get one specific combination of proteins for a sepal, a different one for a petal, and so on. Each unique little team is literally the instruction manual that says, build this organ right here, right now. So how does the crew actually get the work done? Well, as you can see here, it's pretty amazing. These protein quartets physically go and grab onto the plant's DNA at very specific locations. They act like a little clamp, grabbing the DNA strand and literally bending it into a loop. And that action flips a whole new set of switches, turning on all the downstream genes that will actually build the cells and tissues of, say, a petal or a stamen. Okay, let's zoom back out. We've seen the whole toolkit: the decision to flower, the master genes that lay the foundation, and the beautiful ABC code that designs the structure. But what does all this mean for that incredible variety of flowers that we see all over the world? Well, it turns out that this simple, elegant genetic toolkit is the basic recipe behind almost every flower on this planet. Evolution has just been tinkering with this recipe for millions of years, changing where the genes are turned on, how long they stay on, what they build, to create this just mind-boggling diversity that we have today. And that really leaves us with one final, incredible thought. If a rose and a tulip and a daisy and an orchid, if they all start from the same basic ABC code, just try to imagine the tiny, subtle genetic tweaks that must have happened over time to create such stunningly different flowers. It's just a few simple rules playing out in infinite, beautiful combinations.